Hello and welcome back to Stranded Deep. My name is Agork. Today we're going to be doing a follow-up on my last video where I was looking at modding the game files. So today I'm going to go over to the island that we were on in the last video. I'm going to show you some of the things that were modded on the island. I'll explain in which ways you can actually modify the items, which items you can modify and which ones you can't. And then we'll go into some actual examples and we'll look into the game files and I'll show you exactly how to do it. If you haven't already watched my previous video, I would highly recommend that you watch that first. I'll leave a link above here. Click on that, watch the video, and then come back here, and then I'll show you how everything is done. Alright, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we are on Mod Island in the Cartographer. So what I'm going to do is go around and show you a few of the items that were manipulated in the previous video, and I'll explain how it all works. So basically, to start off with, we encountered this gigantic crab. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. He's just been increased in size a number of times, and there's not really much more to say about that. Over here we have two log piles. The one on the right here is the normal size log pile, and the one on the left has been, again, increased in size quite a bit. Pretty straightforward. Over here we've got a lot of weird stuff going on that will require a little bit more explanation. Now, in the video you can see that I could walk across here without touching the water. And that's basically because of the physics of the items under the water here. Now, if I lift this up so you can see what it is, it's just a giant barrel pile. But you'll notice with it that it's a little bit odd. It's been completely squished in one dimension. Now if we look at the three arrows down here, we have a green, a red, and a blue arrow. These allow you to move the item in different directions, but the arrows also represent the object in 3D. So we have an X, a Y, and a Z axis, which are red, green, and blue. And yes, I'm Canadian, so I say Z instead of Z. So you can basically take these and squish them in one dimension while you increase them or reduce them in other directions. Or you can squish them in two directions, and yeah, I mean, you can modify those as much as you like. You can manipulate them in 3D. Now, one thing that's really cool with these is that even though they've been made massively large and they've been squished completely in this one dimension, the game thinks that this barrel pile is still the same size as this massively large barrel pile. So even though it's squished, it still thinks that the barrel pile goes out this way and out this way as well, up the full height of this barrel pile. So basically you have an invisible barrier the size of a barrel out here and out here. And I've used that over on this other part of the island. Sorry for the zooming there. The controls in the Cartographer are not the greatest. Over in between the gap here, between this rock and this cliff face, I have basically buried a barrel pile in here and another one in here. So they've basically both been flattened, and the game thinks that there's a barrel sticking out here and another barrel sticking out here. So you can basically walk across here, across these invisible barrels. And that's how that works with the physics. So you can manipulate the physics in order to create stuff like that in the game. It's pretty cool. All right, I'm just going to move that back down and out of the way here. Also over here we have a Seafort Bridge, I believe it's called. This is the normal size of it. So as you can see, I've manipulated it again quite a bit in order to make it fit within this gap. I've used it as a roof in this dry dock or dock area, whatever you want to call that. Now what I would really like to see them do in this game is add functionality to these controls so that you could actually resize them right here in the Cartographer. That would be amazing. So for example, if you wanted this to be wider, maybe you could just right click on it and drag it and make it wider or taller or longer or whatever you want. And if you could do that with every single item that's been placed in here, rocks, trees, everything, that would just make life easy for map builders. But as it is, you can't do that. You have to go into the game files which I'll get to in a little while, and you have to guess. You have to manually manipulate them, save the game, go back in, check your results, see if it fits, make another adjustment, and it's a really long, drawn-out process, but it's a lot of fun. Now, I also manipulated some Wava Lavula plants up here. I made them much bigger. Don't really need to show you those too much. Down in here, I'll get to that barrel in a minute. On the side here, I have this metal wall that runs the full length of this dry dock area. Or, it's not really dry, but you know what I mean? But that doesn't exist in the game, so I had to create it. So I created it by resizing something else. So let's see what it is that I've actually resized here. Can you guess what it is? There you go. You can probably guess what it is now. It's the Shipwreck, which normally looks like this. And I've basically taken it, I'll get it on screen here in roughly the right shape. I've basically taken this Shipwreck, squished it completely flat in this dimension. Let's get that lined up there. I've completely squished it in the X or Z direction, whatever that one is. I've stretched it out in this dimension and left this vertical dimension the same. And I've turned that Shipwreck into this, basically a metal wall. So I'm using this as a wall. And you can do this with any object in the game. You can flatten them, you can get some pretty weird shapes. Imagine all the different shipwrecks squished in different directions. Imagine this one if you squished it left to right, or top to bottom, or side to side. You can get some pretty interesting shapes. You could use just the bottom of this, for example, as a texture on a flat wall. And that's basically what I was doing in here. This barrel is massively larger than a normal barrel. And again, you can do this with any of the objects that you can find in the cartographer. And if we look at barrels, we're going to scroll up here and go to items, barrel. This is a regular sized barrel, and this is the one that I've used. And it acts exactly like a barrel in the game. It floats in the water. You can right click on it and drag it around. You can't pick it up in your inventory just like a regular barrel. If you use it in crafting, it's going to be used in crafting the exact same way. So if you try and turn this into a hobo stove, it'll just turn into a regular sized hobo stove. It won't be a massively large one, it'll just be a regular sized one. Another thing that I manipulated over here was the same Shipwreck, except that I manipulated it in a different direction. And I'm just going to move it up above the screen here. And you can see that I've turned it into a very large, flat platform, and which I've basically squished this in the vertical direction instead of side to side. I've also made it a lot wider, and I think I kept about the same length as a normal one, or is it slightly? Yeah, it's the same length as the normal one, except this would be this way. So if we come and look down from the top, you can see that they're the same objects. You can see the hole in the side of the Shipwreck over here. You can see this hole over on this side. And I basically just manipulated it. Oh God, sorry, my camera's going weird here. I've manipulated in the vertical direction to make this large kind of U-shaped platform that I used around the base of the sea fort. Just, yeah, because it was bigger and a bit wider than the one provided by the game. So that's cool. This rock over here, same thing. I've manipulated the dimensions of this rock. This is just a normal big rock. I believe it was rock number 2. It might have been rock number 1. I can't remember which one it was. But that's its normal size here. And I've basically just manipulated it in size to be much longer, wider, and a bit flatter on top. And I used it as a kind of a ramp here in my build. So you can do this. These are just a few examples, but you can do this with any item that you can find over in here. You can do it with buoy balls, cloth, crude spears, antidotes, axes, anything in the game you can make massively large or really tiny, or you can just flatten them out, or you can stretch them into weird long shapes. Anything like that in any item in the game. Now there are certain items in the game that you cannot manipulate in the game files, and these are ones that spawn in the game that you can't place in the game in the cartographer. And these include things like the stingrays and the small sharks and turtles and things and fish that swim around in the ocean. You can't modify any of those. Ajuga plants, the purple starfish, and the giant red shipping containers. None of those can be placed in the game by yourself in the cartographer. They just spawn in naturally, so you have no way of modifying those items either. The cliffs over here, this cliff here, I've made like 3 times longer than normal, but it has the same width and height as normal. So that's again something that's been manipulated. And then of course we have this skeleton. You kind of go, okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room because that thing is so huge, it's rather obvious. And yeah, it's a skeleton that's been manipulated in size to be rather large. And you might say, what, wait, there are no skeletons in the cartographer. And you're correct, there are not. But as you probably know, or as many of you may know, with the survival shelters, they all come with a skeleton. So if we take a look at this one, for example, you can see over in the sand here, there's a skeleton half buried in the sand. So if we lift him up, you can see that that's this guy right here. This is the same shelter, that's the guy. So where's the rest of the shelter? Well, it's simply rotated under the island. I have it sitting kind of something like that, but under the island. So if we go under the island here, you can see the rest of this shelter. It's rather large. There we go. So if we click on this thing, I can actually rotate it back above the island. The legs you see over there, those stilts, that's from the sea fort. And if we go back out, oh, come on, get back up there. And there we go. There's our massively large shelter, which is now above the island. Now imagine seeing this on an island when you came to it. I mean, really, this would be just crazy. An entire island covered by a shelter. And what's really cool with these things is that you can use just bits and pieces of them. You can decide that, oh, I don't want this whole massive thing, but I kind of like this little fork over here. This is really cool. Maybe you can just do something like this. You now have this big fork sticking out of the ground. Maybe you want to use it something like this. And you've got this massive kind of lean-to tent just sitting on the edge of your island. Imagine sailing into an island and seeing that there. But this allows you to get very, very creative, trying out almost every item in the game, manipulating them with size, rotating them, flattening them in certain dimensions, and you can create almost an infinite variety of new things to place in your game, piece them together to create odd structures. It's really fascinating to work with. Problem with it is that it's very time consuming, and we'll get into that in a second. And the last one we'll look at here, we've got the Goblin Shark. I just made him somewhat larger. If we go to Shark Goblin, there's the regular size one. As you can see, quite a bit smaller. And again, you can turn this guy tiny, minuscule, so that you wouldn't even see him when he was attacking you, or you can make him massively large. The problem that I had when I made him too large was that he kind of got stuck here. He couldn't really even turn around, so it was a bit glitchy. But yeah, those are some of the things we can do. Now, let's go look at some of the game files and find out how we actually do this. And I'm going to show you step by step how to do this on a brand new island that we'll create in the cartographer here just in a second. Okay, so we're going to go to create an island, and we'll get some randomly generated island shape here. And for this purpose, it doesn't really matter what the island looks like. I'm going to go to the middle tab here on terrain, and I'm going to read the terrain height on the beach here, and then I'm going to increase my brush size, and I'm going to just make this island flat, so I don't want any bumps of dirt and stuff in the middle. So this island has nothing on it. If you've never used the cartographer before, you get this random island shape to start with, and you can use the tools here to mold the terrain to your liking. You can raise the terrain, or you can lower the terrain until you get the shape that you want. You have to place every single object on here. So if you want to start with, for example, some big cliffs, you would put a cliff on. You'd add numerous cliffs, then you start adding rocks, then you start adding trees, then you start adding bushes, shoreline rocks, wrecks, and all the things that you can add in this game. It takes quite a while, but it's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do here is just do a couple of examples. I think I'll just take one of the structures. Let's take one of the shelters here. And I'm just going to clone it a bunch of times. Let's try and spread these out a little. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelters here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as test. Now this is what you have to do. You have to place down some objects, exit the game, save it first, of course, exit and quit. And then you have to get out of the cartographer, so you have to go back to the main menu. Okay, so we have to click back. So now that we're at the main menu, we can now edit the game files without it affecting anything. You can't do it while the cartographer is loaded, so you have to exit the cartographer. All right, so I'm just going to go to my game files. I'm going to go to Documents, Stranded Deep, Data, Editor, Maps, and it should be the first one because this is the one we just edited. Just going to open it just to double check, and yes, it should be this one. And I'll just expand this a little bit. We want the object file, the one that says object on the end here. So if I double click on that, this will open the object file, and this should only have like 5 items on it. Now, from these brackets here, each set of data is for one item in the game. So that I have highlighted, that was for the first shelter that I placed. Down here is the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. So those are the 5 shelters that I've added. Now, each of these have basic information. It has its local position, which is again is a 3D reference point on that map as to where it's located, and it has a reference to its rotation. Those are not that important for this. You can just move them around using the movement tool in the cartographer. The thing that is important here is the scale. This is the key thing right there. You have an X, a Y, and a Z axis, and the default size is 1, which is how it appears in the game. That's the 1-to-1-to-1 scale. It shows up in the game. So we can take this first shelter. We'll leave that one at 1. The second, we're going to just move it to 0.25. And I'm just going to do all 3 X, Y, and Z axes so that it's just uniformly just small. The next one, we're going to make much larger. We'll make that one, let's just go 3. I don't want to get too crazy here. But you can go all the way up to 20, 40, 50. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be massive, but you can do that. And the same with going down. I think the smallest I've gone is 0.01. And it's tiny when you do that. And for the last 2, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just modify one axis. Let's go all the way down to 0.1 on the X. And on this one, we'll go 0.1 on the Y axis. All right, so then I'm just going to save that. Close it, go back to Stranded Deep, open the cartographer. Okay, so we're going to open Test Island. Now we should have 5 completely different shelters. All right, so you can see what's happened here. This, I believe, is the standard size one. This one has been shrunken down to, what did I say, a quarter of its size. This one has been increased 3 times. This one, I shrank on the x-axis, I think it was, and this one I shrank on the y-axis. So you can see you get completely different results for all of these. Like this, what the heck is this? It almost looks like a shipwreck or a freaky creature. I don't know what that is. It looks pretty weird. And this one just looks like a cardboard cutout. And then you've got your big shelter here. And then you've got your normal shelter, and then you've got a tiny version of the shelter. Now, one thing to know about all of these shelters, no matter how you manipulate them, they're still going to try and spawn into the game with whatever crates or tools or extra goodies that the game gives this item. So, as you know, with a shelter, it usually spawns in with a crate and maybe an axe or a lashing or something like that. There's usually a couple of little items, and those will try and spawn in next to it. So if you've got this tiny little thing, you're going to have a lashing which is almost as big, and a couple of other things next to it. The crate will actually be bigger than the shelter itself. And in this one, they'll be somewhere in here as well. And on these ones, because they can't fit within the shelter, they'll just be spat out and they'll be lying on the side here somewhere. So that's basically how you do it. And then once you have adjusted your things, you can just take them and move them around to where you want them. You can raise them, lower them, rotate them, you know, do all the things that you can normally do with these things. One thing that's really difficult about all of this is keeping track of which item it is that you've been editing in the object file. So if I go to an island that is completed, this is Mod Island, the one that we just showcased here. Now if I open the object file, there's a big long list of data here, like really long. Like I'm still scrolling. There's like hundreds of items on here. And all you can see on here is that it says prefab, and then there's this massively long number, and then it's got your data. So how do you know what item that is? Well, you have no clue, really. You can look at the scale, and if it says 1 to 1 to 1, then you have not edited that item. So you have to scroll through everything, find the ones that you've actually edited, and I believe in this case, they're all pretty much all the ones that have been added later on. If I can find any. 1. Nope, these are all. Oh, come on. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting into the ones that I've actually edited in the game file. So yeah, I mean, all I know is this one's been shrunken down to 10% of its original size. No idea what that is. It could be a hog. It could be a giant crab. No way of knowing. In earlier versions of the game, they used to have an extra set of data here at the front, and I'll show you that by going to an older island here. And hopefully this one will have it. Yeah, this is not formatted, but you can see that it has a name. And this one is a ficus, shoreline rock. And you can see that there are names in here. Palm 3, Wavaluvula plant, small rock. You can see all sorts of names in here mixed in. So that gives you all the data of the item. It tells you which one it is, and it was way easier to figure it out. But in one of the recent updates, they removed that piece of data from the object file. I don't know why. Maybe they don't want us manipulating with the object file. I don't know. That's obviously a possibility. But in the current version, when you open the object file, you don't get that extra piece of data. So the only way to know which item is which is by memorizing or writing down and keeping a note of the different ID numbers or prefab numbers. You don't really need to put the whole number down. Probably the last 4 or 5 digits is going to be plenty because they're going to be different for each item. If you make your own list with actual names beside the item, it should then be easier for you to figure out what item it is that you're actually trying to manipulate. If you look at an item list, you can see which ones have been manipulated because their X, Y, or Z local scale will be different than 1. So this one you can see has been increased on the X scale 3 times. I think that might have been the big cliff face. And then this one was a barrel, I think, is the barrel that was floating in the dry dock. I increased it to 8 times its original size. And you go through and you can see, and you may remember some of these, but it's going to be pretty hard when you've got hundreds and hundreds of these in one file. Like you can see here, I'm going to scroll down through literally hundreds of them. So to find the ones that you want and to get the right one and re-edit it again is really difficult. And that is the biggest challenge. So if you can somehow figure out a way to keep track of that, that would make your life a lot easier. One of my viewers with the name KCSF suggested that I take the life raft here and shrink it down really small and see if we can still ride in it. So I thought that was a great idea. So I'm going to create 2 rafts here. Save this first, of course, exit, and we'll go back to our in-game files. Okay, so I have the file back open again, and I'm going to take the last 2 items we've added here, which were the life rafts, and I'm going to take the last one, and I'm just going to change this to 0.25. So I'm just going to make it 1/4 the size of an actual raft. So that should be small enough to see if we can actually still get in it. We'll probably overlap it quite a bit, but that should be fun. So let's go back to the cartographer. Every time you make a change like that, you have to update it in the cartographer and reload it into your world, or else you're playing on an older version. So, okay, so now that we have updated the object file, we have to take the test island and drag it back into our world, replacing it with the new one. Apply, go back, and continue a game. I'll then go over to the island and I'll come back when I get there. All right, so I am back on this little test island again, and I have a tiny little raft over there, and I have a regular raft here. Now this one, I believe, you can still open the raft storage. Okay, can't deploy the sea anchor. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm going to be able to... Oh, is there no paddle? Seriously? How am I supposed to paddle it if there's no paddle? Oh, you jerks. You get a raft but no paddle. How rude is that? It is. Okay, that was funny. All right, let me go out into deeper water here. Okay, let's press the space bar to climb on top. And yep, we are standing on top of it, so that's cool. Let's ride along. There we go. We're a passenger in the raft. Okay, wait. Wait a second. How do I do this? Oh, I can't escape while I'm in there. Okay, hold on. Let me do this. Options. Let's go to 3rd person. Apply. Back. Resume. There we go. There's my nice sharky hat. And let's go E to ride along. Look at this. I'm riding along underneath the raft. That's too funny. Okay, I'm going to stop riding along. Oh, that's just too good. Alright, how do I not ride along? Can I only ride along when I don't have a paddle? I don't have a paddle. Dang it. Where's my paddle? Alright, hold on. I might have to experiment here. Just throw that inside the other raft. Yeah, look at that beautiful shark hat. Wow, that's beautiful. Alright, stop riding along. Alright, apparently I don't have a paddle, so I can't quite do this. And I don't know where on this world my original rubber raft is. Oh, I guess I could go try and find it off camera. Maybe I'll do that, because I would really like to see if she can paddle while she's inside that thing. Alright, I'm going to go try and find a paddle. I'll be back. Alright, so I'm back. I found a paddle. I'm just going to grab this little raft again if I can. Let's take it over here somewhere. I want to put it somewhere where I can access it here. Alright, let's see if we can climb up on them. Okay, hold on. Let me grab the paddle. Hold E to operate. Oh, it won't let me operate. Why not? Oh no! Okay, that's just not working. Oh, that sucks. Nope, won't let me operate it. Oh, that's a shame. Oh, there we go. Somehow I... Oh my god. Help! Ah! I don't know how to turn. There we go. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at me. Yeah, I'm a sailing around. Can I exit while I'm... No, I can't. Darn. Try and go back to first person again. Apply, back, resume. Come on, let's operate. Come on, let me operate it. That's weird. I'm trying hard to operate it, but it just won't let me. I can climb up on top of it. Okay. I'm wondering what the reasoning for that is. Maybe it has to be closer to shore. Oh, did I flip it upside down? Okay, I did. Alright, let's try paddle. Okay, if you're on shallow ground, it'll let you do it. Oh my god, this thing is just not steerable. I'm literally just flailing around in circles. Here we go. She's kind of leaning out sideways there. Oh my god, that would be frightening. Okay. It doesn't look so small when you're just swimming next to it, but it is very small. Wow. So that's really strange. I don't know why that only works in quite shallow water. Get it up into the shallow. Hello. Get it up into the shallow water and you can do it. I'm going to go back to third person again. Oh god, look at her. Ah, you can't turn. Oh my god. I think because it's so tiny, the amount it turns is based on the larger raft. So because it's so much smaller, it turns so much quicker. Like, look at this thing. I'm doing donuts here. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, anyone getting sick and dizzy? Okay, sorry, I'll stop it. No, I'll just go the other way. Alright, I'll stop it. Oh, God. Alright, now I can't stop if I try. Alright, pick a direction and go in it. There you go. It's not like your legs are dangling there for a shark to nibble on. No worries. Oh, God, something's happened with her feet there. Look at her. She's looking a little bit deformed. Oh, man. Hey, fun with physics in Stranded Deep. Oh god, I'm stuck again. I keep going in circles. Oh my god, that's hilarious. How do I get out of this? Oh, there. There we go. There we go. How's that for a life raft? Oh my god, what a hoot. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for this episode. If you want to see more of this, I'll be happy to try and manipulate other objects and try them out for you. Someone had mentioned they wanted to see a great white shark made really large, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet. There are so many different items and shelters and structures and shipwrecks, things like that, that you could really have a lot of fun messing with in here. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Alright guys, that's all I've got for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. We'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.